Another single word I came across when I was reading through Growing Kids God's Way was exhausting. There just are so many layers that parents are required to think through in how to catechize their children, because they expect instant, unquestioning obedience cheerfully. That's the standard the Ezzos have. But they really take issue with other Christian parenting teaching that requires that without explaining why. So they kind of add that to it. They say you should expect that, but you should always explain to your children why. And this often involves a lot of very parsed out analyzing of situations to come at the correct ethical conclusion, and then to impart that to children. So here's an example. They give an example early on in the book on page 50. They say, after morning services, little Stevie Brown was running recklessly on the church patio. Stevie's dad, observing the crowdedness, suggested that he stop, but his mom said, no, he's just being a boy, let him run. Right? Common parenting scenario, obviously an anecdote that shows up in a lot of these resources. Okay, but they end up devoting 2 pages to analyzing the moral issue in this scenario. They say, is there something biblically wrong with running? To answer those questions, we need to know into which categories actions fall. Can something as basic as a little boy running be governed by biblical law or principle, or is it always biblical freedom? And then they go on to discuss the context. They say there's no verses prohibiting play, but they're added the context is all these people, mothers with babies, elderly people. It could be scary for elderly people with a cane. Do we indulge our children with freedoms? And then they ultimately conclude and say Stevie's an example of permissive parenting. In contrast, Ryan Jones stands close to his parents' side. Although he wanted to run, his parents said they could not. They did what is truly reflective of biblical training. They explained why running was not appropriate on the church patio. Ryan's parents, and then he goes through and parses out all these things and how they did it right. Okay, so that may seem like a pretty innocuous example, but I think it shows the exhaustive level of detail for something that maybe requires a simple parental judgment in the moment. There is not just a right way, but there's a really biblical, contextual way to analyze everything to make sure you're really, really, really at the right way. And this crops up again and again throughout the book, and often it's those either or. It's the fictional families pitted against each other as the way of demonstrating different points.